But with that, I'll go ahead and I'll just introduce our presenter, Anna Rodriguez. She's a solutions engineer at Esri, and she works on the state and local government team, and she's based out of the San Antonio region. She has over 10 years of experience working with Esri ArcGIS products, and today she's going to be talking about a topic that I'm really excited about, GeoAI and GIS. So take it away, Anna.
Thank you, Carrie. Yeah, that was a great intro. You about covered everything. Yeah, I've been doing GIS for a while now in a variety of industries and been with Esri for about 4 years now, going on 4 years, but very happy to be with you today. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and stop me. You don't have to wait until the very end, but thank you all for joining us. So just gonna get started here. So our agenda for today, I'm going to walk you through just an overview of AI and our vision for GeoAI. I'm going to dive a little deeper into GeoAI, the various tools you have available, the various applications and ways that you can apply these tools in your workflows. I'm also going to show you a couple of demos within that. And then I'm going to round out the presentation with some AI assistants and some examples of those. Three very simple bullet points here, but I'm going to throw a lot of information at you. So again, if there's something you have a question on, just please go ahead and stop me. So let's go ahead and jump in. So for about the 5 decades now, as you all are well aware, we've been leading and advancing GIS technology by embracing these modern technologies that we keep hearing about from very early on with many computers and even workstations, and then going into the PC era. We've been solving these spatial problems, these challenges, and what we have focused on is, of course, the science of where. We all are familiar with that phrase, but GIS is not just about the technology, right? It's about solving these real world challenges that we face day to day. And from its inception, really, and over the decades, GIS has been embracing all of these new technologies. It's nothing new to us, and so AI in ArcGIS continues this trend of new technology and how we can embrace that. So I want to set the stage here so we have a common understanding of these terms and the terms you've been hearing and what you'll be hearing throughout this presentation. So artificial intelligence, or AI, is the simulation of human intelligence in machines, enabling them to learn, to reason, to solve these problems, help make decision-making a little easier for us. And then machine learning within that is the application of AI. And this allows exactly what it is, so machines to learn, but without being specifically programmed to extract this knowledge from data. And we could do this through methods like decision trees or linear regression, things like that. And then deep learning is a type of machine learning, right? This is based on artificial neural networks. These use multiple layers to progressively extract higher level features from your raw inputs. It uses more advanced methods that can help you solve more complex issues, but also using large data sets. And this focus more on the analysis and the pattern recognition. And then generative AI is a subset of deep learning, and this creates new data for us, such as text or images, even video and audio. And these models learn patterns from existing data, right? And then using that knowledge to generate new and possibly unique outputs from that data. And then we have fields like computer vision and natural language processing, so NLPs, and these are also greatly advancing the effectiveness of AI. For example, using LLMs or large language models that are trained on, again, massive volumes of data. We're talking millions of gigabytes here, let's say from text from the internet, right, to understand and generate NLPs. So when you hear the term AI or GeoAI, that encompasses all of these things and various applications of using this technology that you see here. More recently, we've heard of AI assistants now. This has also joined this entire group, this umbrella of AI. And we're going to take a look at what those are a little later in the presentation. So how is AI empowering our users using ArcGIS? So AI in ArcGIS, we can learn from data, it can adapt to user workflows, and it can also anticipate user needs, right? So all of this is going to enhance not only your data, but again, that decision-making process with that deeper intelligence that we sometimes miss without these tools. Our vision is to help you in these processes, by making recommendations, creating these information products, improving that user productivity and efficiency. And most importantly, we want to continue to deliver these spatial insights, right, derived from your data or the data that's available to you, but doing it quicker and at scale. So the progression of AI in ArcGIS has been pretty steadfast. We've been doing this for more than a decade now. We can date things back to 2008 with machine learning. And this used things like geographically weighted regression, or GWR, and other statistical and raster analysis tools. We then ventured into the era of geospatial deep learning and research and development about 9 years later in 2017. And then from then on, we've just improved in many areas of deep learning. We've included pre-trained AI models, deep learning on multispectral imagery, and so on and so forth. Just a few years ago, we added the Deep Learning Studio, and this helps you to complete and run your deep learning models or processes in your ArcGIS enterprise. We've integrated GeoAI tools in the ArcGIS Pro Toolbox for you. We've added text analysis and automated machine learning and deep learning tools back in 2022 and 2023, just to help automate those processes of building and optimizing these deep learning models. And more recently, we moved into some multimodal AI. We've integrated foundational models, so you'll hear things or have heard things like segment anything models, so SAM. We also have Prithvi models that you can work with, and visual models like TextSAM as well. And then we more recently started adding these LLMs for text AI and generative AI for those assistants in ArcGIS. So we continue to advance these areas by blending and integrating various innovations in science and technology. AI, as you probably already know, it's being infused across many areas of GIS. All of these innovations that you see here, they're important to us. They help us redefine and transform the role and the impact of GIS in our communities, in our organizations. Now, let's take a look at some of the motivations that infuse AI into ArcGIS. This can include things to help you with your day-to-day workflows, such as enhancing your productivity, accelerating that decision-making from maybe days to perhaps down to hours or even minutes. It does this by providing you tools for advancing that spatial analysis, your visualizations, real-time data integration and processing, and also things like predictive and analytics forecasting. We can accomplish all of this by two distinct different methods. So we do this from an underlying technology perspective, but we also do this from a use case perspective. And our vision, again, for AI and ArcGIS is rooted and true to that mission for GIS itself. So as AI becomes an accelerator for solving these complex problems, working with these larger data sets that we're falling upon, we're just going to do this in a faster and more efficient manner, right? So improving that productivity, streamlining these workflows, but again, always delivering answers and geospatial or spatial insights derived from that data. We're actively working to selectively incorporate AI into ArcGIS, and we do it for the purpose of expanding the power of GIS, of course, but also to improve your user experience. So AI is a very broad field of knowledge. Its applications span across all the things you do with GIS, so mapping, analysis, data collection, data management, even collaboration. AI is being infused into both existing and new spatial tools. So we're enhancing and we're creating that new user experience with these tools. And we're doing all of the above with an emphasis on you all, on our users, on our community. And again, all of these products just make sense for spatial workflows for our users to care about. So two distinct categories where ArcGIS is being enhanced with AI. We focused, starting with the left, within analysis, so making predictions, extracting features from an unstructured text or imagery, let's say. And on the right, we have, already in beta, if you've, I'm sure you've seen the emails that come to you. So on the right, AI assistance, so assisting you with mapping workflows, answering questions about your data, using tools more effectively, using those AI assistants. Again, just boosting your productivity and even lowering that barrier of entry for those non-GIS people as well to be able to use these tools and get more familiar with GIS or ArcGIS products. So taking a look at these two categories, GeoAI advances the science of GIS using AI tools and models to extract information from your data. And then the AI assistance, so enhancing that experience, that user experience of ArcGIS, using these agents, using these assistants that use that natural language processing, right? And we're just using that as a way for people to start interacting more with these tools that they might not be aware of. So let's dive into the GeoAI side first and get a little deeper into these details. So within GeoAI, the fusion of these techniques, including learning or machine learning and deep learning techniques, we're doing this through spatial analysis, through this spatial data science and geospatial technology, just to increase that understanding, right, and solve these problems. This isn't a term that it's not new to our community. It's not new to the academic community or even Esri. We've been using these machine learning tools for clustering, for classification, for prediction analysis for many, many years. But now we're bringing these deep learning and machine learning tools again to ArcGIS. And now we have new ways to solve old problems. We can now address more complex problems using these larger data sets and improving our data with these tools, again, in a more automated way. We've shown this slide for the last few years now. I don't know if you've seen this, but since then, there has been many rapid advancements within the AI landscape in ArcGIS, and we just continue to make remarkable progress in this area. We've had things like vision transformers, segmentation, again, those large language models that you're going to keep seeing. With advancements over the last years, went too quickly. With these advancements, these models have become so much more improved just with the data that keeps learning from newer data, right? And with these recent generative AI tools or models, you can start to create and generate things like human-like text or even 3D content, right? These have been some of the most commonly used AI models within ArcGIS. So within this landscape or this GeoAI landscape, we're blending the science of geography and AI, right? We've created these models such as computer vision that can extract features from imagery, let's say, or 3D point clouds also. We can use different kinds of data modalities as well. We have models that can read and categorize text or even extract entities from text. We can have tools, or we have tools that can model, that can perform analysis, whether that's predictive analysis or perform more of that trend analysis that you need. So there are different applications of GeoAI. There's different components. So GeoAI can include feature and tabular analysis. It can include imagery and text analysis, of course, and as well as time series analysis, which is really cool. And as we go further into that AI umbrella, like you saw, we have tools that will help you with this analysis. So within that GeoAI toolbox that we mentioned that you see on the right here, you'll find tools for machine learning that will help you with things like regression modeling and decision trees. So things like classification and pattern recognition for your workflows. Within deep learning, we have tools that will help you work with unstructured data as well. So we have tools for inferencing workflows, such as pixel classification, object detection and classification, and of course, that feature extraction. And for things like computer vision and that NLP, so natural language processing, we've just released our beta assistants within a few of our products. So you'll see some of these beta assistants in Survey 123, even ArcGIS Hub, Business Analysts, and of course, ArcGIS Pro. We recently added one for Arcade as well. So with tools you have access to now, we're now extending that AI or GeoAI into the entire ArcGIS ecosystem. We can extend and build custom models for things like 3D, for imagery and video, and of course, vector and text data. We have tools for web services, and we have ready to use pre-trained models that come right out of the box. You don't really necessarily need to train these. And we have GeoAI powered applications and solutions to help you in your everyday workflows. So these tools can be applied to many different data modalities. Like I mentioned, different data types. When we need to extract data, we can apply computer vision techniques to imagery, to 3D data, video data as well. And we can apply these NLP techniques to unstructured text data. So when we're analyzing this, we can apply machine learning and deep learning techniques to this back to this vector or tabular data and that time series data as well. And so while we can view this from the data modality perspective, it's all about solving these problems, right, with this data. And we have two ways of doing this. We can either extract data or generate spatial data. And we can also analyze our spatial data. So on the extracting side, for example, extracting data from imagery, from 3D imagery. So GeoAI has come a long way from simply processing overhead imagery that we used in our maps. ArcGIS now supports a rich tapestry of data modalities and analytical tasks. You can use GeoAI with scenes, with videos, with point clouds, even 360 street level imagery, and field images captured on the go as well. So this comprehensive approach is just allows that deeper and more holistic understanding of our data, of our community. And these capabilities are only going to empower your current workflows, right? From object detection and classification to, let's say, crowd classification as well, even climate forecasting, right? Whether you're tracking assets, monitoring urban sprawl, trying to predict crop yield, GeoAI is just going to provide those tools to extract those actionable insights from your data. And we support dozens of deep learning models and architectures that are useful for many, many users. So our most recent work here has been fine-tuning these foundation models, right? So these foundation models that help you extract spatial data. You might have heard of the segment and anything model that we call it the SAM model or the Prithvi deep learning model. That Prithvi model, it was created by NASA. It's a massive 600 million parameter architecture. It allows it to learn complex patterns and relationships from satellite imagery. This model can be used to automate things like flood detection, right? To help identify flooded areas with precision, aiding in that disaster response that you might need or resource allocation. It could do things like wildfire scar mapping, right? So detecting and mapping burned regions of post-wildfire areas for those recovery efforts. It can do things like crop segmentation, so it can differentiate between various crop types or maybe a critical capability for precision agriculture. Just a quick example of optics detection. This is just a screenshot here. So using imagery to detect swimming pools in this case, or building footprints. We have some imagery of a neighborhood in Paris, California here. So we've created building footprints from our imagery. The blue polygons are identifying rectangular swimming pools, while the yellow dots denote a more round or non-rectangular swimming pools within that parcel. And here we're using AI to help build an initial fire assessment post-wildfire, right? So buildings in red have been identified as affected versus the green outlines, if you can see those, are identifying structures that appear to have remained intact after a wildfire. So AI's ability to create this type of information quickly is a huge value in emergency response, provided, of course, you have the right data and the deep learning models to be able to do that. One of the ways we help our customers get started with these GeoAI applications is by making these available pre-trained models to you. So we provide access to a curated library of more than 75 pre-trained models that are accessible from the ArcGIS Living Atlas. These models are suited to perform a variety of AI tasks to address different business needs and challenges that you might need to address. So extracting building footprints again, let's say for planning, appraisals, there's classification of structures for insurance purposes, right? So generating change maps from time series data or creating a pervious map for taxation purposes, things like that. So these models, make getting started a little easier for people, and the faster, you can use them, the more far ahead you'll be in your analysis with your data. They're just a starting point for you all to also be able to train these models even further if you needed to do that. These are all the deep learning models that are currently available to you now. They're versatile right out of the box, so they're already trained for you. They don't necessarily need the extensive computing resources or even extensive AI knowledge. You can always improve these models, of course, to your own geographic area. And we're now seeing the improvement of these foundation models, right, that contain these massive parameter architectures and are trained and prompted to perform a wide variety of tasks for you. All right, and just to show you what that looks like, I'm going to show you a quick demo of one of our pre-trained learning models. So here we're using a 6-inch image service from Kentucky. Let's imagine that this is an area of new construction and I need to create building footprints, right, to add to my county-wide layer maybe. I can use the image analyst extension and the deep learning toolbox to detect these objects. So the only inputs I need here are my raster layer, a name for my output, and a model definition. And this is where the Living Atlas comes in. So here we're going to do a search, and you're going to see all of the pre-trained model definitions that are available to you. There's many to choose from, everything from detecting cars, pools, power lines, tree points, roads, you name it. But we're going to use that building footprints model. And of course, we're not going to run this in real time. That would take a lot of time. So here you'll notice, as soon as that layer is run, or that model is run, sorry, you'll notice these inference buildings, they don't really have super defined edges, right? They're very round. We can then use the regularized building footprint tool here to give them more of those rectangular, those sharp angles that we need, like footprints you would see in your base map, just to refine those building footprints for you. And there you have it. Very simple, very quickly, we were able to extract these building footprints just using our imagery. There's such a wide variety of deep learning applications in state and local government. We invite you to check out these models through the Living Atlas, just to get a better feel for them, start getting more acquainted with them. Very easy to use. You can get in touch with your own solution engineer just to help get started. We're always here to help and happy to help. So another way to extract spatial data is by using NLPs, right, on unstructured text. So geospatial data doesn't always come neatly packaged in the form of feature classes or even a file geodatabase, right? It's often buried in the form of unstructured text, such as reports or documents. And we have tools and pre-trained models to help extract that information from these texts using NLP techniques. So we can classify text, we can extract entities from it, and transform it into another format that we need. So we're now seeing the emergence of these LLMs like ChatGPT, of course, that can be prompted, or given a few examples to perform either a task or answer questions for us. So we're integrating these models within ArcGIS so you can use them to extract information without needing to train these custom models yourself. And some examples of that text classification. So maybe you want to assign a block of text to a label or a category. You might want to identify country names or identify incomplete house addresses, things of that nature. Using text classification, you can also use text translation to use with your unstructured text data. There's so much text out there in the form of reports, PDFs. You all are well aware that sometimes the data that we need doesn't always come in the format that we need it in. And finally, analyzing spatial data. So this is the most common way to analyze spatial data using deep learning models is by detecting clusters or grouping these similar observations or data points together. We have several ways to do that. And these are all statistical ways to do that. So the k-means method, so detecting these clusters based on attributes, for example, precipitation regions, or redefining assessment neighborhoods, let's say. The scatter method as well, it groups based on attributes as well, but it forces these regions to be more spatially contiguous. Then we have density-based clustering, building balance zones, right? So creating spatially contiguous zones like cells territories, for example. This is a generic algorithm that tries to find the most optimal solution based on the criteria that you specify. And finally, analyzing data to make predictions. So this is probably the second most common way to use GeoAI behind feature extraction of imagery. And these applications can include things like interpolation, classification and regression modeling, such as linear regression, GWR, so geographically weighted regression as well. We have machine learning algorithms such as random forest space and XGBoost. Max ENT or max entropy modeling is used to predict species distribution. We have multimodal auto machine learning techniques that can be applied to tasks that involve data from multiple sources or modalities such as images, text, and tabular data. All right. Well, that was a lot of information that I just threw at you. Is there any questions so far?
There is one question in the chat about the accuracy rate of the AI models.
So the accuracy rate can be found within the item details. If you would to go into that, into the Living Atlas and go through those viewing those item details, you would see the accuracy of those models within that metadata. Sherry, I see your hand up as well.
Hey there. Hey, everybody. So I know I saw the pre-trained models. I did look through what you have available. If I was to go into blight detection, is there any of the models you would suggest that could get me closer to detecting that blight? I know I might have to go in and fine tune a lot, but which one would you suggest that would be closer to that?
And I would probably start with the object detection, because then you would be training the model to detect a certain blight, right? And it's not necessarily detecting like that one image you saw after post wildfire, right? So we're trying to detect things that are not, structures, right? So you can also try the segment anything model, but then you would be classifying other features in there. So I'd start with object detection and then training that model within your geography to get you better results.
Okay. Yeah, we are, I think, especially with dealing with municipalities, blight is a big thing. So yeah, that's the next endeavor that we're embarking on. So anything that gets me closer to that is great. But cool. I will start with object detection. Okay.
Yeah, that's a cool application. Thanks, Sherry.
Thank you.
All right. So just to quickly review, GeoAI includes the application of traditional AI techniques, so generating spatial data through extraction, through classification, detection of information from structured and unstructured data. We can apply computer vision techniques to our imagery data, to our 3D data, and those NLP techniques to our unstructured data. It's also used, spatially explicit, data from other techniques, so detecting patterns, right? So making predictions, spatial temporal forecasting, many other applications. So we can apply machine learning and deep learning to many different types of data to get what we need. So now, how are we doing on time? Oh, we're good. Okay, we're going to jump into AI assistance. We're going to round out our presentation with that. If you're not familiar with AI assistants or AI agents, there is a little bit of a difference. AI assistants are designed to interact with users, while AI agents are more autonomous and can act without user input. So both types of AI can help with tasks like information queries and task management. They're both going to kind of do the same thing. But if you remember those foundation models, AI assistants are built by using an LLM, so large language models, and they're going to specialize in this text, knowing what to do with text-related tasks. So they're just going to help us understand our queries better and using our data a little better. And these are things you've already, I'm sure, used things like Siri, Alexa, Google Assistant. These are all pretty general examples of these AI assistants or agents that we've been using already. Now within the context of ArcGIS. So we have different user personas that are using these within ArcGIS, within our various apps, our tools, our methodologies, and we are designing different types of AI assistants across the ArcGIS ecosystem that will each deliver a different experience for our users. And we've designed two types of AI assistants. The first is the configurable assistance. This is designed for the let's say, GIS expert or user to start exploring, to start visualizing, or even analyzing data through that NLP, so that natural language processing. And then the embedded AI assistant that's going to extend that familiar GIS experience through those NLP capabilities to also explore and create and analyze. But this is more, for that GIS user that has been using GIS, right? So it's just going to help make these information products maybe a little better or improve them. So the way assistants work is by first understanding your intent, right? It retrieves that knowledge from the data that you already have, your trusted sources of truth. And then it's going to collaborate with you by sharing its understanding of your data. This assistant is then going to suggest actions that are relevant to your intent. And then it's going to finally execute that request. You could take the suggestion, or you could do it yourself in some cases when you have that information, or you can ask the assistant to do it as well. So our history of AI shows how strong and committed we've been to this area, always keeping GIS on the forefront and our users at the center of it all. We continue that pattern with our AI assistants as well. So we're working on various aspects to improve this area, just through our architecture, through our user experiences, through our capabilities as well, but also model tuning, prompt engineering and context of learning through these AI assistants. I think the most important aspect also is that we're building an AI system that you can trust as well. So we do have an advisory board at Esri made up of leaders across various industries. So this includes our chief legal officer, our chief information security officer as well, CTOs, and many experts from different domains that we've brought in just to make this, area a little more trusting, with and how you're using your data. We want us to trust you with trust us with our GIS, with your GIS needs. We just want to ensure that trust continues as we continue to advance GIS using AI. So we've been phasing out these AI assistants across the ArcGIS ecosystem. They leverage that generative AI and large language models to help with specific tasks like searches, mapping, and survey design. They're often embedded directly within that ArcGIS app that you're already using. This just allows you to focus on the experience of using the AI assistants within ArcGIS to deliver that concrete value for you. You might have noticed them already if you've noticed them in beta. So in Pro, we have three areas that we're focusing on. The first provides a doc assistant, within your ArcGIS Pro interface. This is going to offer the same easy exploration of our documentation. It's just going to be within that ArcGIS Pro interface without needing to leave Pro ever or at all to get that help documentation. The second is providing assistance that will help you complete specific tasks, right? So you could tell ArcGIS Pro to either add a layer, filter records on that layer, or run a specific tool, and Pro would respond by performing that action for you through that AI assistant. You could also use Pro Assistant to quickly write SQL also, or Arcade, and generating the appropriate code, let's say, based on your instructions to analyze your data. And then lastly, we want to provide the assistance, or we want to provide the ability for the assistants that can guide you through workflows one step at a time as well. You can tell ArcGIS Pro what you want to accomplish. It will recommend the sequence of steps that you're looking for, and then it will recommend that sequence or workflow and the tools to complete that workflow. You could also refine that process by telling Pro to either add or remove those steps, giving you just a more natural way or your way of collaborating with Pro to work faster and more effectively, or the way that you're used to working with Pro and your data. I think this is going to be a short demo on Pro. Yep. Okay. So the AI assistant for Pro has already been released with 3.5. This has 3 capabilities. So by default, users can ask help questions. They can click on these cards like a graph query or query layer. Here we're asking how to perform object detection. And the answers we receive come from ArcGIS Pro help documentation. You will be able to click on the source link to verify the information if you needed to do that. And the responses can be copied, or you can also provide feedback on whether the response you got was good or bad, which is good. You can also provide comments if you need it as well. So we're going to use that query layer function. In this example, we're going to review some information for counties that were affected by the 2005 Hurricane Katrina. So we want to determine which counties, population, and farmland that were most affected by the hurricane. So we're just going to ask a very simple question here. We're going to turn on that layer. We're going to select our database and the tables that we want to use for our analysis. We're going to use hurricanes and the counties table here. So now we can start asking our questions. For example, which counties were affected by the hurricane? You can see the query is generated up top, and we're also provided with an explanation of what the query does. So we're going to add this query to our map, and then we're going to zoom into that. And we can see the affected counties. We're going to ask it a few more questions here. So the affected population greater than 50K. Query is again generated. We can add that to our map. And if we zoom in, we can see those counties that were affected or within those parameters that we specified. You can also view those attributes. So we're going to just refine this a little further. Now we want to find affected counties, so more than 50K, that contain farmland more than 100 acres. And there are our counties. Now, if we open that attribute table, we have that information that we need. Population and crop acreage based on those parameters. Pretty cool. So Survey 123 is another product, another popular, this is the popular form-based data collection app. Today it's in beta. Still in beta. And it's the same thing. You can ask the assistant to create questions or even entire surveys based on the data that you want to collect. It provides those questions as well as the constraints or choices that you want to make available for your responses. So the assistant will be able to help you with build that survey with your questions, eliminating that manual configuration step, right? It also allows you to review those questions. And then if you're satisfied with the survey, you click OK and the survey is generated for you. Huge time saver just by being able to ask it a couple of questions. Many surveys ask users to add a photo or collect imagery as part of that survey response. So using things like computer vision, you can configure a survey to automatically extract information from photos and add it to the response. In this example here, you can see that we're telling Survey 123 to extract a license plate number or numbers from vehicles as part of a parking violation form. And this just makes that data collection both faster and more accurate just by using a photo and extracting that information. These are already available to you, and I'm just going to show you a quick little demo of what that looks like here. So we're starting with a blank Survey 123 form. Here I'm going to open the survey assistant on the bottom left. And here I'm interested to know and assess the GIS maturity of my organization. So I'm going to ask to create a survey for this assessment. In a few seconds, the AI assistant is going to create a sample survey of questions pertaining to my organization's GIS program. So we can see things like, how do you currently use GIS in your work? how would you rate the accuracy and quality of your data, and so on and so forth. And so if I'm satisfied with these questions, I'm gonna go ahead and click generate a draft of this survey. And with just a few clicks, survey 123 or the assistant is going to have that GIS maturity assessment for me. If I needed to, we can go into the web designer and make any changes to that survey if we wanted to change a couple of questions or maybe even responses from that survey that was created. Now, if we're interested in creating a survey, let's say to assess the level of knowledge of my respondents, we can go ahead and do that. And we want to make the survey multiple choice. So we went ahead to make sure to request that. So in just a few seconds, again, that next survey is requested. We ask it to generate it or generate that survey. And now I have my second survey of that level of knowledge of my responses. So very cool stuff, huge time savers for simple things, right? A simple survey that we might not want to spend a lot of time on. Again, these things are available to you now. If you have questions on how to use this, you can always ask your solution engineer or myself, and they will help you get started with these. We have various ongoing projects for these AI assistants in our technology. We've recently added a arcade assistant that's also pretty cool, right? So it's going to help you build that arcade, let's say script, right? And help you learn that arcade syntax that many of us are wanting to learn, including myself. So that's also in beta. And now, so our AI strategy has always included more than just generative AI, right? We've used our tools for many years for analysis, for simulation and optimization, and even things like non-generative machine learning workflows. And, we like to show this, as in any innovative technology, when it first comes out, it's always introduced and it follows this technology hype, right? So we like to show this slide because it tends to follow this pattern when there's an introduction of something new and something innovative, right? So we have that innovation trigger at the very bottom, like an AI assistant. And then we peek at those inflated expectations of this new technology, right? And this is how we essentially started within this whole AI landscape or GeoAI landscape. So we've gone through the trough of disillusionment, we've improved and refined this technology, and we've been maybe even enlightened to its capabilities. And I think this is where we are now. I think we're in this beginning area or beginning stages of what we believe we're headed towards. We're not quite there yet, at least I don't believe we are. But I think we're kind of hitting the slope of enlightenment where we're seeing the capabilities, we're seeing what this can do for us, how we can improve our workflows and save time doing that. So technology usually tends to follow this pattern that you see here for new technology. So my question to you is, who will lead that AI transformation of GIS in your organizations? And you don't have to think about that very long. The answer should be you, obviously. So just to understand the impact of AI in GIS and see how you can leverage AI to make a positive impact, in your organization and in your community. You've already probably been using these tools. There are just more tools to pull from to make these more actual insights for you. So our AI strategy for you is to start small. So focus on some key use cases like Sherry had, right? So being able to detect blight in her community. You want to consider your AI architecture as well, or the architecture that you'll be using these tools in, which you have in place in order to use these tools more effectively. And of course, we want to engage our stakeholders, but especially our C-suite or our leadership, our directors, right? We want to be able to champion this area more, champion GIS across your organization and basically show off what you've already been doing with these tools and will be able to do with these newer tools as well. So all of this, is going to enable that ArcGIS ecosystem for you. It's going to enable your users for you. Even if they're non-GIS users, you can still be able to say, hey, look, just pop in here and ask it a question. You'll be able to learn, how to use these GIS tools. So this is only going to improve your insights, improve your user base, let's say, and again, champion GIS across your organization. And I believe that is our last slide. much time do we have? Yeah, great. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Anna. It's really great.
Yeah. Awesome.
Right.
Has
Do
it-
we have any? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, has anyone tried using the AI assistants yet?
I have not, but when you mentioned the arcade assistant,
Yeah.
I wrote that down was see if we could get access to that, just test it out and see how that works.
You should. It's really cool. I'm pretty sure it's really been released in beta. I don't actually can't confirm right now, but yeah, that's going to be a really cool tool to just be able to learn arcade period and do different things with it.
Do we have any questions in the chat?
Awesome. Well, that was a lot of information, but like I said, you can always reach out to your account team, to your either account manager or solution engineer, and I'm sure that they'd be happy to show you some of these new tools that are available to you.
And
I do
there
have
is,
one.
yeah, okay, go on, Carrie.
Go ahead, Rob. You go ahead.
I was just gonna say there is one question in the chat about
Sure.
what Esri might be doing to offset the energy consumption footprint. So
Of these
I don't know
models?
if you can see it. I'll just read it to you. According to
I
an
can't.
article by researchers from the University of Massachusetts, they found that training and running AI models requires enormous amounts of energy, often derived from fossil fuels, and they found this contributes to greenhouse gas emissions. What is Esri doing to offset this footprint? I mean, I'm not sure
That
if
is a
that's within the scope of this, but
kinda. I mean, I think that's a great Jack question if you want to pose that, you know, at UC coming up, or maybe even in your UC survey. I'm not familiar with the things that we're doing to offset right now. I'm sure that if we start to address this more, we'll start to get more information as to how we're kind of offsetting that footprint. But I think it also depends on the amount of data that we're using. And this is just going to get, you know, we've all heard the term of big data, right? So I think big data is already here. Using these larger, more complex data sets is going to require more processing power. So that's a great question. And I don't have an answer for you, but I'm sure Jack does. And that's not me being sarcastic. I think Jack tries to acknowledge all of these areas when we're providing these tools. So I invite you to fill out your UC survey if that's something that you'd really like to learn more about.
I have one additional question. The GeoAI toolbox that was in ArcGIS Pro,
Mhm.
is that with just a 3.0 release and later?
That was introduced, yes. It is going to be a 3.0 accessible after 3.0. And I actually don't know when it was first introduced, but I don't think it's prior to 3.0. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Let me see if I can look that up now. Well, we still have a few minutes.
Any other questions? I actually do have one more question.
Yeah.
On one of the slides earlier in the presentation with the GeoAI models, it talked about address correction.
Mm-hmm.
Is that more for the unstructured text, or is that maybe training some of your data?
You could probably use it in both. If you're using unstructured text to identify addresses or identify missing addresses or incomplete addresses, you can use it that way. And you can also use your existing data. So it could be both. It can be unstructured and text data that you already have, or a table that you already have that you're looking to identify incomplete addresses. Does that help?
Yes, that was actually really neat. I thought that would be
Yeah.
something really cool to check out.
Mm-hmm. And yes, you are right. To whoever asked that question, it's only available in Pro 3.0 and subsequent versions.
I have one question. I thought maybe I saw this touched on the beginning of the presentation, but is there a tool or a way, a model that would allow you to take two data sets and they're both address? For example, this is something we dealt with recently. We had two address data sets that are supposed to represent the same addresses, but they're spatially offset a little bit because one of them came from a different agency. One of them's our data, one of them came from the federal government or the FCC or something like that. Or it was on a broadband project, and our job was to normalize that so it was one data set by getting attributes from their data into our data and it was a huge pain. Does that seem like something one of those models would help with?
Man, that's you, right, Rob?
Yes, that's me.
Yeah. There's a way. I'm just trying to think off the cuff here. If there's a way, I mean, we see a lot of our state and local customers wanting the same thing. I don't know off the top of my head how we would be able to begin even consolidating and improving an address data set or one authoritative, right, address table using different sources. I would have to think a little bit more about that, but as far as using a model, yeah.
It was just something that popped into my head.
That would be a very good use case, Rob. I feel like that's something that we could definitely dive into and see if there is a way to use one of these models to improve, to generate one, right, improved address data table from various sources. I like that idea, actually. We really do run into that a lot where we have different, address data from different agencies and they're all using something different, right? And we don't ever know which address table to use, right?
Well, and if you think of something, you could always send me an email later. I did notice we got another question, similar question in the chat just a minute ago while I was asking my question. It's from Brant Solis. Where can I learn more about the address correction capabilities that Carrie was asking you about?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to follow up on that because I also want to know if there's been applications of this already and I can extend this to the rest of our team and see if there's been any applications like that using our models. So I could follow up on that.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. You're welcome, Brant. Sean. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today. I really appreciate you hopping on and wanting to learn more about GeoAI.
Thank you, Anna.
You're welcome.
Thanks everybody who joined online as well.
Thanks.
All right. Have a good afternoon.
Y'all have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.